Tim. Welcome to What You Want, and thanks for logging on. Welcome to Wacky Week. Everything's out of order. In all honesty, welcome to Wild Card Wednesday, this first day of summer 2017. I'm here with Jason Mane from the What You Want sales team. Jason, how are you doing?
Good, glad to be back.
And I am glad that our lav mics are back. The condenser was fun, but trust me, we've never had so many sound faults in such a short period of time. We heard your hue and cry, and we've answered. So the good sound is back, and actually, speaking of good sounds, Mike Michaels is off tonight, riding his Harley somewhere between Miami and Key West. So Jason's with me. We're going to be answering your questions, but before we do, if you want my old style on the wrist review, yep, System Frog, What You Want watch reviews, you can find it on YouTube, my old style 4 to 6 minute quick hits. Okay, Jason, let's play this or that.
Sure.
Now, you were working Tourneau 2 years ago when both of these model lines came out.
Okay.
So back in the day being like 2015, Glashutte Original, Senator 60s Iconic, we're playing this or that here, with fabulous dials produced in-house with lacquer, pressing, and also galvanization, automatic 40-hour display case back, about $7,500 US, or from that same class of 2015, the Rolex Oyster Perpetual 39, the 114300, with dials in blue, dark rhodium, and grape, the last of which is guaranteed to make your wrist grape again. I'm being silly, guys. That's the Moser hat, by the way. Okay, that one's 5,700. So you go with the Senator 60s Iconic, explosive colors, or the Oyster Perpetual 39, both automatic, both 39 millimeter, both steel, but you're going, I think, with the wackiness of the Geo versus the solidity and full bracelet of the Rolex.
Sure. I would have to say, I'd have to go Senator.
Okay.
And the reason for that would be 39 is probably a little smaller than I would normally prefer to wear myself. So if I'm going to go with a 39, I'd prefer a watch that has a dressier appearance. Versus something that's a little bit more sport. So I feel like a 39 on my wrist, the Senator would just kind of fit the occasion better, and I love that aqua dial.
Do you feel that this is more like a second or third watch? Like, if you were to have only one watch, does the fact that the Rolex is more water resistant and on a bracelet shift your sentiment at all?
Sure. From a practical standpoint, if it was my only watch, that would come into play. If if I only could have one dress watch, then I wouldn't pick the Rolex either.
Okay.
So it would depend on the occasion. But for one watch only ever, it would probably be the Rolex. But I like the aqua dial a lot on that.
I got to admit, I like the aqua dial too on the Senator 60s Iconic. I think both of us go for the more expensive watch here, strap and all, just because it's got so much more character.
Yeah, it's a pretty piece.
It's a beautiful piece. And in case you haven't noticed, we're doing a Swiss theme tonight. I have 2 hats that I picked up at SIHH. I've got my Jaeger-LeCoutlre hat with the Blog to Watch team pin that I stole from David Bredden of A Blog to Watch. And I've got the Moser hat. This is Make Swiss Great Again, guys, please. I've gotten a lot of hate mail for having this in the background of my set. It's purely watch related, plus wonderful travel guides for our friends. So tonight we've got a bunch of new watches and from some pretty heavy hitters. Starting with Panerai, with the Panerai Luminor Submersible Automatic Divers Professional PAM 731. Jason, what is the hook of this watch?
I think it's Panerai trying to play at the heartstrings a little bit.
Okay.
So, the submersible case is just always a fan favorite.
With the blue dial.
Yeah, blue right now is so popular. I think it's just them compiling everything that is doing so well and trying to find something that could really
play
get
to the
people
moment
excited.
and the market. Yeah, really. I would agree with that. I would also say one of the other kind of attractions of this, and maybe the innovative aspect, is that it's an e-boutique exclusive. Now, the US-based e-boutique is right on Panerai.com. You can go on there and buy a watch online, officially, with a warranty from the factory and have it shipped direct. So the e-boutique is exclusively carrying this piece, and 100 are being made. The price is a rather reasonable $7,200. It's not priced as a premium or exclusive. It's exclusive by dint of production volume.
Right.
44 millimeter stainless steel. So it kind of harks back to the great submersibles of the early 2000s, like the 64 and the 87, the so-called Bombas.
Right.
And like you said, it's like a combination of everything the Paneristi love. automatic, date, submersible, 44, crown guard, blue. Back in the day, I mean, were you at Tourneau back when the 87 with its blue dial and its 44 case was still around?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that was a hotcake, right?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, though, every Panerai that came out was a hotcake. I mean, something new came out and you had to have it, or you knew someone that had to have it. I mean.
Yeah, I think they're trying to get back to that sort of sense of exclusivity with like more special editions but lower overall volume rather, I should say. The value is a little bit lower in purchase price terms because it's $7,200. This is not like the PAM 203 where you knew it was going to be almost $20,000 primary sale and then 80 or 100 the second time around. The value is fairly low at the purchase price. I think the problem is going to be getting one.
I think getting one's going to be tough. I know I spoke to about 2 people today that got one.
Wow.
But I also had 5 or 6 people ask if they could get one. So directed them right to the website. Don't know if they were successful or not. Okay. But
so it's an e-boutique exclusive, but there might be a source that has 1 or 2. I'm just saying. ... But anyway, so I think 2017 is becoming a big year for fans of blue dial Panerai. You've got the PAM 692, the BMG tech.
Right.
Okay, so there's one blue dial. You've got the PAM 700 ID Lab, which is beautifully encrusted with blue accents and vivid ones at that. You have the PAM 671 Bronzo Blue, and you've got the PAM 716 Mare Nostrum chronograph.
It's a whole lot of blue.
I mean, have they blown it, or is that just enough blue?
We're not there yet, I don't think. Maybe approaching critical mass, but I think blue's still hot. You know, the thing with blue is it's such an emotional,
yeah.
It just pulls at your heartstrings.
It's a vivid color, you know? I've got a lot of watches with blue dials, and I got to say that was a huge attraction.
Yeah, and especially when you're looking for a watch and everything, you know, 15 out of 20 pieces are black. You come across that blue dial and it just, you know, it draws your attention.
I think it splits the difference between casual and formal. Like, a black dial works with anything. A silver dial works well with formal attire. A blue dial, unlike a lot of colors, like this System Frog on my wrist, a blue dial is a color that can be both formal and casual. It works as well in shorts as it does in, you know, black tie. Yeah. Maybe that's the appeal of it.
It's possible. We also like the aqua on the Glashutte, so
that's true.
Maybe we just like blue.
Are this or that watch lines, the Oyster Perpetual 39 and the Glashutte Original Senator 60s Iconic, both offer a blue option. Again, this is the year of blue, and in that spirit, we have another interesting retail concept and a special edition that's associated, the Ressence Type 1 Mr. Porter. Okay, 18 pieces overall, so we're not talking a lot of units, but it's a venture by the Richemont/Yoox Group men's fashion online retailer with the Swiss-Belgian hybrid Ressence. You know them for the watches that spin. Well, all watches spin, but they have the unique orbital convex system where everything seems to move like a planetary gear around the dial. Now, the thing is, they are the Type 1 PM MRP, and the Type 1 PW MRP. The PW is 6 pieces in rose gold, the PM is 10 pieces in titanium. Both 42 millimeters, titanium and rose gold, $20,600 US dollars and $33,800 respectively. Let me ask, is this like is Mr. Porter going to become like the new Turler, Gubelin, Tiffany, Serpico Leno? Like, we have those co-signed retailer editions from the 60s and the 50s and the 40s. Is Mr. Porter the next version of that?
I think it's certainly the idea. I don't know, you know, I guess time will tell. But, you know, I could definitely see why they would take that route.
Now, coming from the pre-owned side, now you did pre-owned with Tourneau as well as new, now you do pre-owned with us. Do you see this, I mean, obviously people who are fans of Ressence are probably going to be all over this because as Ressence goes, the Type 1s are their most accessible.
Sure.
And this is a cool limited edition. The PM has a very cool brushed blue dial, and we were just saying that's the thing. But on the secondary circuit, do you see people rushing to take these off the hands of the original owners? Does Ressence have that kind of following?
Probably not.
Or at least
you know,
not
maybe,
yet.
Yeah, not yet. I was going to say maybe eventually. I think that the brand would have a long way to go before they can fill that kind of demand where people are just hunting for these pieces. But I think they'll sell out.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that the guys that get them will love them for a long time. I don't even know that they necessarily make the secondary market for a little while, so that might help with demand.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just it's good to note that of the brands that actually did some volume gains last year, I know they were almost all independents and smaller brands. We saw growth from Richard Mille, from Moser, and also from Ressence. All three of them were up in total volume in the apocalyptic 2016. By the way, guys, last month's Swiss watch export data comes out tomorrow. Check fhswiss.com for that. We'll have a little bit of coverage here. But yeah, I mean, last year was just a nightmare, and Ressence actually managed to gain in volume. Still only a few hundred pieces. Right. But what's the appeal, I guess, of independent brands versus the mainstream at this point?
I mean, there's always going to be that David versus Goliath. I think it pulls at a lot of guys' heartstrings, too, to find something that's, you know, not readily available, not common. Especially when you're spending that type of money, you know. A lot of these guys run in the same circles, and if your friend has something, you want something totally different. So that kind of plays to that aspect, I think, of the micro brand. Okay, so it kind of goes back to what a lot of the mainstream brands like Zenith and Panerai, for instance, were in the United States around 2000, when neither one of them had really good distribution. Neither one of them was common. You're probably more likely to see one in a pre-owned case at Tourneau than see one in a dealer's case first time around. They just didn't have distribution. Right. I guess to a large extent, people can get the same thrill of exclusivity and sort of the inside, you know, secret handshake, the nod and the wink, by buying from an independent that has just continuously low volume on principle. And get the same sort of thrill they got when they were just discovering a lot of these European brands in the early 2000s. Great way to put it, yeah.
So we got some comments coming in, and I've got to ask a question to our user Thundertime, who has been on before, and he's greeting us from North Korea. And he's mentioned this before, and I've got to ask, how does that work? Are you in an embassy? I mean, are you using like a car battery hooked up to a laptop? How is this? Please tell me how this is happening, because I would love to know the story behind this user. Thunder Time, you've got the mic if you want it. I noticed that we've got quite a few Paneristi tonight. If you are a Paneristo, sign off. I am reading our live questions, and you know, obviously Jason is going to be fielding questions with me. He knows retail, he knows markets, he knows both pre-owned and the AD side, because he's worked on both. He's basically like my Josh, but he's also like my mole into the world of authorized retail. So tonight, guys, yeah, I'm asking Thunder Time, explain this North Korea thing to me. By the way, I bet Kim Jong has got a mad luxury watch collection.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, we know he's got cars, right? You know, we saw the interview.
It's probably rooms of just, it probably looks like an e-boutique or like just...
Yeah, let's just skip Archie Luxury and jump straight to the top. Hey, Kim Jong, if you want to be on this show, you got a seat. That's a standing offer. Okay, silliness aside, we do love Ressence and we do love the Type 1, so I'd actually say $20,600, and Raf's got the picture again, for the Type 1 PM MRP with the blue dial, beautiful brush, titanium case, 42. It's got their proprietary system hooked up to a bomb-proof ETA 2824, a mobile case back knob, and all the branding, the Mr. Porter stuff, is on the back of the watch. So it's not like you're tattooed permanently. It's not there if you don't want to emphasize it.
Thank you for that.
Tell me a little bit about like co-branding done right and done wrong, because we've seen it done wrong with cars a lot.
So when it was first done, when someone first put something on a dial, it was cool because it had never been done before. Then it just was abused. Secondary market's always going to be better if it's more of a low-key kind of co-branded piece, just because the secondary market, there's going to be more, it's more accessible to a lot of people. Not everybody wants, you know, a dial that's been branded with something that they don't necessarily care about. I mean,
yeah, it's kind of like a hot rod. It's almost like you build your dream car, but then if you want to sell it, you've got to find someone whose dream car is literally identical to what you built.
Exactly.
It's all, I mean, it's the same kind of thing when you've got the name of some person on the dial, or in the case of something like the Jaeger-LeCoutlre Valentino Rossi editions. They were great watches, and I actually loved the color combo they added with Rossi's yellow. But if you don't identify closely with Rossi, it becomes a little bit, you know, problematic. And it's the same thing when there's a car brand on the dial. It's the same thing when there's a retailer on the dial. You really have to love it to buy in. And it's just a little bit more difficult to find.
It limits your market. I mean,
it's hard to find that guy the second time around.
Sure.
So you think Ressence did this right with the case back?
Absolutely.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of what Ressence does, and I even like the way they did this. Okay, by the way, guys, I know that there is a Tag Heuer Hodinkey edition that's out. kind of late breaking. Interesting stuff, but again, if you want to read about that through a well-known media outlet, it's available. Grand Seiko. Jason, before we jump into this one, what's your view of the challenges and opportunities facing Grand Seiko as a mainstream player in the U.S. and European traditional luxury markets?
So since the change?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Since they relaunched the brand.
So first of all, I like Grand Seiko.
Yeah.
I always have, even when they were, branded with the Seiko name. I think that they are constantly pushing, an evolution in movement and not necessarily materials. I guess that's going to change. I think that's one of the things is kind of getting out of the comfort level of the look of the watch.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the Grand Seikos tend to have the same case shape and look similar.
They only really embraced, like, for instance, ceramic in the last 2 model years.
Yeah, and I mean, their technology push is really what's exciting to see. Now that they're stepping out, hopefully, a lot more research and development, a lot more material sciences, maybe some different molds. I like to see some different case shapes, something a little bit more outside the realm of what they're known to do. But I think they're fantastic watches. I'd like to see them stay under a certain price range.
Sure, okay.
Because I feel like now that you're your own brand, I feel like there's a pressure to start building these pieces that are really expensive and kind of abandon the people that made Grand Seiko stand out.
Yeah, kind of like the way Panerai went from like the $3,500 to $6,500 watch to being like the $6,500 to like $16,500 watch.
And you kind of price out the guy that built you to be what you are in the first place.
So tonight's Grand Seiko debut is definitely of the new persuasion.
Right.
It's very upmarket. It's the Grand Seiko 8-day spring drive, now in rose gold. It's a successor to last year's Grand Seiko 8-day spring drive, which was the first Grand Seiko, as opposed to Crador, to be built by the Seiko Micro Artist Studio, where they churn out a few dozen minute repeaters, Grand Sonnery, H models, and of course now the 8-day spring drive under the Grand Seiko banner. And this was a year of rebranding for Grand Seiko. They're no longer going to carry both Seiko and Grand Seiko on the dial. They're going to become their own thing rather than sort of a perceived offshoot of Seiko.
Right.
Again, it still says Grand Seiko, not Grand something else. So there's a tie to the brand.
Sure.
But at $59,000 US, this is a big step upstream.
Yeah.
I mean, who buys this watch at $59,000? Give me the profile of that Grand Seiko customer.
That's a guy that drops 60 grand on a watch probably twice a year.
Okay.
And every other piece is kind of already in his collection, and it's just time to find something that's just kind of funky, I think.
Okay, so is he a Grand Seiko collector, or is he a guy who's ordinarily doing like Voudelainen, Dufour, Laurent Ferrier?
Yeah, I don't see him being a traditional Grand Seiko client.
Okay, so now let me ask, is it okay to have models like this as long as you keep the baseline, the $3,000 to $7,000 Grand Seiko available?
Sure. I think if you do this once or twice a year,
okay,
and it doesn't become commonplace where you have, a lower line or your standard line, and then these really high-end pieces, and there's 10 or 12 of them a year, because then you create a division in your line.
Yeah.
But if there's one or two that's a proof of concept for something, and then just like cars, and then maybe a year or two later you see that proof of concept come true in a titanium or a stainless steel piece that's more affordable, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and I can see that being appealing. I mean, if you were to take this same Micro Artist Studio assembled caliber, and it's a remarkable caliber, 3 mainspring barrels, 8-day power reserve. Of course, it's the spring drive that melds a quartz oscillator with a mechanical drivetrain and a spring power source. It's manually wound, so it's got a beautiful display case back. It's an incredible watch. If you were to put that in a titanium or a ceramic or a steel case, you could probably cut the price in half. And then you've got a step between your traditional Grand Seiko customer and maybe that ultimate aspirational watch. You've got something in the middle.
Yeah, bridge the gap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it has this spring drive caliber 9R01A2, which is basically a way of saying it's their spring drive manual wind caliber built by the Micro Artist Studio. Gorgeous, hand-built. The finishing is the same that you get on the bridges and plates of a Swiss movement. The finishing on the wheels, the finishing on the pivots, things like roulage and functional finishing. It's all to the same degree. It's just at the heart of it, there is a quartz oscillator driven by an induced current. So Do you think that's another problem? Do you think the kind of guy who buys this type of watch is already so into stuff like Urwerk and MB&F that he thinks from left field and he's not disturbed by the idea of having a quartz circuit in there?
No. I think Seiko makes it very hard to overlook this watch.
Okay.
Okay. You know, it's definitely the same type of guy, but I think the watch is definitely in the conversation.
Okay, very cool. So now we've got some interesting questions coming from the field here. Okay, so Wissam Al-Ashak's asking, Tim, what do you think of the new Heuer Octavia? Is it of any horological value? Well, I mean, I have my opinion. I think it was right to engage the community. I think the process of creating this watch was more interesting than the watch itself. Heuer, or let's be honest, Tag Heuer, is a brand that is still kind of finding its feet. Are they smartwatches? Are they high-end stuff like the V4 or the Heuer O2 Tourbillon? Are they lower-end stuff with ETA or Sellita calibers? Are they mid-market stuff with their own movements and some zeniths thrown in? I'm not sure, and neither are they, which is why they're trying things like this. So I love the idea of bringing in the guys who may be fans of vintage Heuer and making them part of the design process. The watch itself, I'm not a Heuer fan, so it doesn't appeal to me. I do feel like the kind of person who buys this watch probably would have preferred to get a vintage piece. Ideally, own one of each. I would say 50 years down the line, it's probably not considered a landmark watch, but for the short term, this process of bringing people in democratically to the creation might be a viable model for the industry. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think it's pretty well said. As far as compared to the vintage piece, I think the vintage piece is way cooler.
Yeah.
I feel like this is an attempt to try and capture what Tudor's doing with the Black Bay.
Okay.
That now new constructed vintage piece is kind of where the market's been for the last 2 years. I don't know if that's necessarily where it's going to be this year. But it's a cool watch. Buy it pre-owned, buy it secondary, because you know they're going to be out there, and I wouldn't pay retail for it.
Well, I mean, it's a nice watch. Honestly, I think ultimately time will tell, but we have plenty of prologue with respect to vintage tribute watches at this point. Back in the early 90s, when Vacheron Constantin was planning the Les Historiques line, they were the only ones doing anything like that. Let's take an old reference and reissue it with modern fit finish and, you know, larger proportions. That was completely original, and Omega with the museum watches in the early 2000s was sort of on the same track. But by the time, you know, in the mid-2000s, Longines and Jaeger-LeCoultre and IWC, everyone starts getting onto the notion of issuing a modern watch that looks like an old watch. Now it's a crowded space. So it's not just that we're measuring the new Heuer Octavia against the rest of the Tag Heuer line, but it's got to be viewed in the context of so many of these watches on the market.
Right.
And that's the value proposition. So Thumper JDM saying he loves his Petravi Scuba Tech. We hear you, man. That's a great watch and one I love from Bucherer. Question from Superstar. This one's for me and you, Jason. Between a Rolex Sub and a Grand Seiko Diver, something like an SBGA 29, which one would you go for?
Sub all day long.
Okay. Okay.
There's many different aspects to why I would pick the Sub, but probably the most important is just secondary market value.
Okay.
Just it's iconic. It's always going to be. It's something that's always going to be sought after. I'd have to go Sub.
Yeah, I mean, so you're basically looking at buying. Let's say this is like the early 90s, and the questions you've asked, should I go with the Grand Seiko Diver or the Rolex Sub? It's like asking, should I go with a Porsche 911 or an Acura NSX? Back in the early 90s, I think most people pick the 911. I think today, there's a reason those 90s NSXs are worth a mint in good shape. I would say just because I love Grand Seiko and I'm a little bit of a contrarian, I mean, I'm the weird guy with the glasses on his head, I go with the Grand Seiko Diver. I like what they do. The SBGA 29 Spring Drive Diver to me is a fun, offbeat, innovative, high-value proposition. The new High Beat Diver is ambitiously priced. I mean, now we're talking super sub money, above sub money, for a watch that's a little too big for my wrist, but I would go with the Grand Seiko Spring Drive Diver. So, okay, is there any brand, this is from Mike Breikovic, is there any brand besides Rolex or Patek that makes sense buying retail?
Sure. How much do you like the watch?
Yeah.
I guess it depends on what you want to spend and how in love you are with it. Any model that comes out and is brand new and you love it, I mean, you're going to have to buy it retail, right?
Absolutely.
So unless it's, you know, a reissue in a different color and you can justify the original color or something like that, But it really just comes down to value proposition. How much do you want the watch, and are you willing to spend the money?
Yeah, so it's a lot like buying an exotic car. Some people are just not comfortable with the idea that someone else might have flogged that Ferrari. And it's amazing what you can hide with an SDS tool in the car's data logger. So I would say, first of all, for highly specialized watches where condition is paramount, you may want to be the first buyer, and that's regardless of brand. Where rarity is a thing and prior treatment is a concern, buy retail. Now, the other thing to mention is that a lot of independent brands sell direct, and that's the best way to buy them. I mean, I'll be honest, there are some brands that sell direct customers, they make a few dozen pieces a year. So if you're dealing with something like a Lang & Heine, you're probably going to want to call Marco Lang. I'm just saying, or Dominique Vermeer. They're wonderful representative. And then there are brands, I guess, like MB&F and Urwerk and also Richard Mille, where each year's novelties, for the most part, are going to be sold out.
Yeah, there's also that, you know, the equation that you use with the car. You know, I would trust Mike with the pre-owned watch that he's serviced.
Mike Michaels, our watchmaker.
Mike Michaels, our watchmaker, over maybe something that comes right off the shelf. Because a lot of these brands, you know, sometimes you get them and they're not what Mike can do in his shop. So, you know, pre-owned watches can be refinished to a very fine degree, which we do here every day. And Mike and his crew in our shop, I mean, the watches most likely are indistinguishable. And I mean, just fantastic pieces. So condition-wise, I wouldn't worry about that. But.
Yeah, so it's often a matter of just getting the thing that's not available, getting the thing and having it, you know, having your wrist be the first skin to touch it. And then there are some brands with which you will want to have a prior relationship. Look, there might be a lot of high-end brands that are fairly mass market, such that you can find them pre-owned all day long. But you might have to be a great customer of Vacheron Constantin to get something really exclusive that comes out, or get a bespoke request lodged. You might have to have a really good relationship with a Rolex dealer to be the first in line for a ceramic bezel Daytona. There are times when having a prior relationship with a dealer and a brand justifies buying retail, because you'll get what everyone else has to stand in line to obtain. And it's not just Patek and Rolex.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Okay, so a question from Robert Dixon of Scotland, I believe, who's asking, Tim, have you ever had a Roger Smith watch through the door? No, and I'll also add that in the case of those like one-man band watchmakers, their stuff does not show up pre-owned. I mean, it just doesn't. It trades hands between collectors. Oftentimes, you'll buy that watch and you'll know the name of the next person to own it before you take delivery. The guys who collect that sort of stuff are that close.
They just call dibs.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let me have first right of refusal when you sell that. Oh, cool.
Absolutely.
It's like, we used to know a guy who was here all the time, and his dad had a Ferrari Maranello, and always like, please, give me first right of refusal if you ever sell that thing. I'm still waiting, but it's that sort of deal with a Roger Smith watch. So, other questions coming through. Okay, this is interesting. This is from McKinley Stevens asking, Audemars Piguet 15400 white dial, so the silver, for $13,500, or a Rolex Day-Date 118238. This is the traditional 36 millimeter, so-called mint pre-owned for $15,000. I think you got to go with, and by the way, 238. This is going to be a yellow gold Day-Date. So, Jason, how do you even approach that question? 41.
They're just totally different watches. I mean, it's kind of hard. Which one do you want more? I guess buy both.
Yeah, I mean, that's the perfect answer, right?
They're so different. I mean, personally, the only thing I can speak of is what I would wear, and that'd be the AP. The
AP brand is strong right now. If you're going to pick something other than Rolex or Patek for resale value, retained value, perceptions, AP is as strong as it gets at the moment, outside of, you know, boutique independents, like making a few hundred or a few dozen watches a year. So the 15400 white dial, it's not going to be as appealing to the market as the black or the blue, and it's a fact that those two versions are sold in smaller volumes. They're easier to sell in the secondary market, and they have longer wait list at, for instance, AP retailers. But comparing an automatic three-hand with a date, presumably in steel, because he doesn't specify,
right,
with a silver dial, to a yellow gold Rolex Day-Date 36 millimeters, I really feel like at heart you must already know which one you want, because they're so different.
Yeah, and I think the reference for $13,500 on the AP would have to kind of signify that it's steel. Yeah. Because if not, then that's an even better deal, and go get the AP again.
Yeah, jump on that.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I loved the 2013 Rolex Date 8 Color Series. So for me, the green sunburst and the green strap for the win. But again, I'm just an odd duck. I like that kind of thing. Okay, Raph, we're going to get back on our roadmap here. From watches that cost a ton to a watch for about the price of a strap. I don't do these micro brands that sell stuff for under $1,000 too often, but I thought it was a nice detox from the $59,000 watch that came before it. This is the Dufa Alto Regulator. I'll say that again. The brand is called Dufa, which is a kind of contraction of Deutsche Uhrenfabrik, which is a remarkably matter-of-fact name for a watch brand, even by matter-of-fact Teutonic nomenclature customs. So basically means German watchmakers, Alto Regulator, and for about $610 with a Miyota movement, it's a sharp-looking watch. I mean, it's a regulator. Can you go wrong at that price, Jason?
I like regulators to begin with. I think, you know, it's a cool-looking watch. It certainly looks more expensive than it is on the wrist. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's a sharp-looking watch with some interesting color options. It's got a decent size to it. It's a Miyota movement, so it's not like it's some sort of, you know, Hangzhou movement in there. You know, it's a decent caliber with a 2-year warranty. I got to admit, it's a brand that has no history. Even the kind of trumped-up attempt to create a history on their website leads to the conclusion that someone thought of this like months ago. But I mean, that's the impression you get. But as an alternative to something like a SevenFriday,
oh yeah. I mean, for the price point, does it need history?
Not really.
I mean, you're gonna wear the watch for a little while, and then you'll be good with it, and you pass it to a buddy, or you know what I mean, like.
It's got a 2-year warranty. If it breaks after 2 years, you kind of got your value's worth.
Pretty solid movement too. I don't think you'd have to worry about that.
Yeah, it's a Miyota 8000 series. It is watchmaker serviceable. There are pin lever movements and plastic movements from the 70s that are still running today. So yeah, 2-year warranty, an interesting looking watch. It's assembled in Germany with foreign components, and I think they're pretty open about that.
Yeah.
I like it. I don't think it's a bad deal at all. What do you think of the sub $1,000 mechanical watch market in general? Do you have any interest in it? Is it relevant to collectors, or is it just like a sideshow?
I think, no, to collectors, I guess it depends. Do you collect sub $1,000 watches? I think what that market does is allow a lot of guys to become collectors.
Okay.
So it's the entry point. It's exciting for younger generations. It's good for us, guys that are already in the market and looking at higher end stuff, because we're bringing new blood into the passion that we love.
Yeah.
But I think it makes pieces more attainable that are nicer, and you know, they gain a new respect for the hobby. So
I think that's a great way to say it.
It's a gateway watch.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the idea of having a bridge in the middle of the Grand Seiko lineup between like the sub $10,000 and the $59,000 Spring Drive. Maybe this at the lower end is a bridge from like a smartwatch or a Swatch up to, you know, a basic Breitling, you know, maybe something like the new Colt, maybe something like a basic Super Ocean Heritage.
I mean, I could see a guy going from this and having this in a box right next to like a base Hamilton, right into like a vintage Longines or an Oris, and then moving up the line to a Tudor. So, you know, there's a progression there.
Yeah, and I'll also admit, I was at Home Depot today carrying heavy stuff, and I wore my Swatch System Frog. So there's a time, even if you've got the Dual Met and a Platinum Tourbillon and a perpetual calendar alarm and all this great stuff in your watch box, when you just don't want to risk damaging it. I mean, there's wearing it and taking your knocks. My Dual Met's got scratches and dings on it, but you know, it doesn't have a shattered crystal. It doesn't have a dent.
Right.
There's a point at which you want to be able to wear your watch without worrying about your watch.
So use it, don't abuse it.
Exactly. And for, you know, the abuse, there's the sub $1,000 watch market. Okay, so question coming in, and this is a great one from Dex 1007. Tim, my collection consists mainly of divers and my Speedmaster. I'm looking to buy my first JLC. Which model do you recommend under 9,000? I would say go back to the mid-2000s, to the heyday of the master compressors, and get yourself a master compressor Memovox. You can wear it as a dress watch. You can wear it as a dive watch because it's got an internal rotating bezel. It's also got an alarm. It's a great travel watch because of that. At 41.5 in steel with a black dial, it's a perfect size, and it wears well with anything. And an alarm is the JLC complication. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a great pick, and with the dive aspect, it also kind of ties into something that talks to him, because that's what he has in his collection, but it's far enough away from the norm. So yeah, I mean, go buy one now.
I would say 100 meters more than enough for anything other than professional diving. The alarm is the thing for JLC. In a lot of ways, this watch channels the best of the late 60s Polaris diving alarm without a line for line, you know, kind of return to that exact thing. Like the tribute to Polaris, to me, was maybe a little too literal, whereas the Master Compressor Memovox was a nice blend of a contemporary style with all of the features that you loved in the original Polaris. But I'll also say this, if he wants to go with a Reverso, I would say go out and try to get yourself the Reverso Rouge, the red lacquer dial from 2012. That is the hotness. Yeah. Everyone loves it. I love it. It appeals to people who aren't even watch people in a way almost no other watch I've seen does. So definitely consider that if you're into the idea of a pure dress watch from JLC. Other stuff we've got on the agenda tonight. Okay, questions. Damien L asks, and this is kind of returning to a theme from earlier. I love the Royal Oak Classic Steel with the white silver dial. I've seen your videos for the Royal Oak 15400, and I'm also looking at the Royal Oak 15300. So the difference between the two guys is that the 154 came out in 2012. It's a 41 millimeter. The 153 ran from about 2007 to 2011, and it's a 39. Both of them have the same Audemars Piguet 3120 automatic caliber inside. It's not the old JLC 889 base. So Jason, he wants to basically get into the older model for about 10,000, or get into the 15400 for no more than 12. What's the best bet, and which should he pick?
I think 10 and 12 both are going to be ambitious, probably a little low for what the secondary market is on them.
Okay.
The 39s seem to be picking up speed.
Okay.
The 15400s and the 41 millimeter also becoming very strong. 15400s non-blue dials are selling right around 14, I believe. So not too far away from the mark. If it's me, I go for the 41 just because that's what I would wear. But the 39s, I mean, I've actually put a 39 on my wrist and it sits just fine. So it really, I guess, just depends what you want. But I'd probably spend the 14 and get a 41.
Yeah, so realistically, for either 10 or 12, he's probably looking at the 15300,
yeah,
not a 154.
Yeah, I mean, the 154, you're 14 grand.
Yeah, that's a hot watch, and AP is a brand on the rise. So like Jason said, the 15300s, in general, their market is hotter now, and they're selling for more transaction price than they were 2 years ago.
Yeah, fair to say.
Okay, so Damien, that's what we think. Ryan G asks an interesting question. We mentioned Glashutte Original and AP earlier in this feature, guys. And Ryan G asks, I'm interested in your opinion, this or that style. I love the inversion of the movement. So I like watches with the movement on the dial side. I have an almost 8-inch wrist. I'm debating between the AP Millinery 4101 and the Glashutte Original Pano Inverse XL. Both come in steel or rose gold, he notes. I've seen the steel AP for sale on our site. Of the 4 versions, the AP in rose or steel, the Glashutte in rose or steel, what is the best option? Looking for some guidance. Okay, so Jason, right off the block, we have to address price, because there's a huge disparity between the steel versions of these watches and the gold. Under what circumstances would you recommend he goes for gold? And then we'll talk about which model.
We're talking new prices, not pre-owned prices.
Yeah, let's just say pre-owned is going to be a fixed fraction of the new. So even though it'll be less, gold is still going to be a lot more.
I would say, this is important because if you're a gold guy and the watch has to be gold, that's one thing, because then you're just looking for the gold piece. If it's more about value proposition, precious metals always going to net less on a secondary market than steel would as far as what you're going to pay out of pocket and get in return. So if on the backside of it you're always thinking about an investment purpose, I think the stainless steel or a non-precious metal makes more sense, especially if you're going to wear the watch more. Yeah. There's just less places that you can wear a solid gold large watch. I guess it just depends on your preference. I don't know too many guys that wear both watches readily. It's either you're kind of a gold guy or you're kind of not.
I would say make that choice first.
Yeah, it just depends on.
If you've got unlimited budget and you favor gold, go for gold. If you can't get gold off your mind and you don't quite have the budget, then save up and get gold, because you'll buy the steel and have regrets.
Right.
But after you've decided gold or steel, these models are so different, and I've got to throw in the Panamatic inverse, because the AP is an automatic watch. The Millenary 4101 is an automatic self-winding watch. So comparing the manually wound Pano Inverse XL isn't exactly apples to apples. So I'm going to throw in the Panamatic just to enrich the options. I also want to give a shout out to William Banks, who says he's been accepted to study horology at Birmingham, UK to become a watchmaker. Says we influenced him. Congratulations, William.
That's awesome.
That's the greatest honor I can be accorded. I appreciate that. I'm glad I had some role in pushing you in the right direction. Also, a question from Matt Forster. Tim, Parmigiani, what are your thoughts on the current models? The Hemispheres, the Couture, what kind of discount off MSRP if you get pre-owned? Well, I'll say, let's just approach the pre-owned thing first. I mean, wholesale, it's a brand that probably sells for a very small fraction of the original dollar, so maybe it's purchased for 35 to 40 cents on the dollar pre-owned. I think pre-owned retail, it then sells for like 50 to 60% of MSRP.
Yeah, it's pretty fair.
In terms of the quality, great stuff, as good as anyone in the business. Their base movements go into everything over the years, from Bulgari to high-end Baume & Mercier to Richard Mille. So you will not find a more capable manufacturer than Parmigiani and the associated Vaucher manufacturer. I love the Couture annual calendar. I love the Hemispheres, because let's face it, it's hard to find a travel watch that lets you set not just the second time zone hour, but also to the minute. That's unique. Parmigiani does things differently. Their looks are polarizing. But I will say that the Tonda 1950 Micro Rotor in steel was the best value with black dial of SIHH this year. They had some great stuff like the Toric Chronomet, beautiful, exclusive, and as well built as anything out there. If you want the truly spectacular, check out the Chroneur Anniversaire. Split seconds, blue enamel dial, skeletonized 18-karat rose gold movement. I had one in my hands. You can see my review on our channel. But they make stuff from the level of like a Zenith to a Patek Philippe. You just got to find the one that speaks to you, because their shapes are polarizing. I'm not going to lie. What's your feeling about the brand?
I mean, it's a fantastic pre-owned value proposition. I mean, they make, like you just stated, a phenomenal watch. You know, to be had at half MSRP. I mean, it's not really anything you can ask for more than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic pickup, guys. I'll also say I have a question from Prokoviv, who is asking me, Tim, what pre-owned world timer would you pick between 5,000 and 10,000? Well, I would say you've got a couple of good options. I really like the Breitling Galactic T-Sleek World Timer. I love the tungsten bezel. I really like, honestly, you can pick up the Jaeger-LeCoutlre Master Compressor Extreme World Time, and almost any of its base metal special editions, like my Tides of Time, you can get that.
I was waiting for the JLC. I knew it was coming.
I had to.
I was surprised it wasn't the first one out of your mouth.
Sub $10,000 world time. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean that JLC. I'm sitting next to you, so I'm gonna go JLC.
I'm not gonna fire him if he disagrees.
He's got a gun under the table.
Yeah, I'll shoot him, but I won't fire him. So I would also say consider the IWC Pilot World Time. That's out there. That's a great brand, a solid watch, a very capable world timer from a real core IWC model line, a good value. And you know, there's other stuff out there like, you know, you should have no trouble getting the Louis Vuitton Escale World Time, which is a surprisingly appealing and capable timepiece. Don't write it off just because of the Louis Vuitton label. They're becoming a force in horology. What else? What do you think world timer, sub $10,000?
I think IWC is probably the first place where I start shopping.
Okay.
Just me, there's quite a few Breitlings also. They can be had around $5,000. So I guess it just depends.
Yeah, you can easily go below that $5,000 lower threshold and find some interesting world timers out there. By the way, Mike Mancinelli just made it. What's up? Welcome, Mike. You signed off right towards the end. Marco suggested Nomos. I'm not sure the Nomos Weltzeit, the Zurich Weltzeit, is precisely a world timer. It's more of a dual time, an elaborate dual time. Just like the JLC Geographics are more of an elaborate dual time than a true world timer, but they're definitely options, the Zurich Weltzeit and the JLC Geographics. Okay, so guys, I think we had a fun show tonight. We hit a little bit of the live Q&A. We also managed to cover our talking points. A lot of new watches. Are we seeing more mid-cycle watch debuts than we used to?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of these brands are starting to think a little bit more outside the box as far as how they hit the market. And you know, when you're looking over here, you hit them over here.
Yeah, this time of year used to be crickets.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's fun.
It's fun. It's like Basel World all year long. That's horrible if you're the organizer of Basel World and you depend on the foot traffic. It's great if you love watches.
Well, you get to text all your watch buddies and say, "Did you see this?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's like Christmas in July and June.
Yeah.
Or Hanukkah.
Why not? I'll always take more watches.
Whichever special occasion or ritual of faith or non-denominational following of time and space you subscribe to. I try to be inclusive. Okay, guys, thank you so much. I do want to say I am signing off until about 2 weeks. We will rumble back to life on this channel after the 4th, but this is Tim's sign-off. I know I've got a picture of the Queen Mary. No, I'm not going to Long Beach, and I'm not going to England either, but we are going to be upgrading the technical capabilities of the studios because stuff has been whacked lately, and we don't want a recurrence. We also want to be able to bring you more great content. So, Jason?
Yeah.
Let's sign off together. I'm Tim, he's Jason, he's Raph, this is What You Want, and thanks for logging on.
Bye, guys.
See you soon.